how, first of all, we can build our capacity here using your skills so that we use your tools to engage with the community and share your experience on citizen engagement, where we pick natural observations to use in changing how communities think, so that, mindsets are built over time. But if we can learn from biology, we can adapt with the changes that are ongoing on our environment. So specifically, we want to see how you can equip us with your 7Vortex model engagement on what we are doing in the local scene.
Yeah.
That's the request we have before you.
Okay. So I think, well, thank you for the introduction, and I feel very honored also to work with you. And I think this is about acting as a species. Like it is not anymore just about one country or the other, but nature. We all belong to nature, and we should all be worried about what's happening because everything is connected. So on my side, I will start, I think, how I did it, what my intention was behind it, and then from there I will drive you through the platform, how it is structured, and at the end I will give you the possibility of the tools that could work also for you and for communicating with the government, and also to have this engagement with the community. This is what my expertise might be. So first of all, I'm a biomimicry professional, and that means that I've been trained on how to understand biology from systems and organisms to create better solutions for humanity most pressure challenges. And that was conscious. I was part of the second generation, so it is something really new. Although biomimicry on its own, as you mentioned it, Cecilia, with the fractals and all these things, has been happening forever. And if we think about the origin of humanity, that so far we know happened in Africa, then your culture is the elder culture of humanity. So I will say that even your fractals will be more in the side of mathematical roots for the rest of the world. On the other, like, it's a difference because it is not that it is ethno, so that is classified from the north into some kind of indigenous knowledge. But I will see it more in the line of time, in the timeline, saying like your culture it has been through many more cycles than many other cultures. So it is interesting to understand it from this perspective. So as a biomimicry professional, you talk about ontologies, and we use the biological term that is related, which is called taxonomy. And taxonomy is the same kind of thing, like it's a way to classify the information, so we understand where are these patterns and these possibilities. So said that, being part of the second generation was very tough to bring science into Mexico, for example. And as you said, being Colombian as well, I knew that speaking the same language doesn't mean that we have the same culture. It is just that we can understand the words, but it is completely different. So my challenge was how to create something that actually enables us different cultures, as is, for example, in Latin America, this mosaic of cultures to emerge and to be able to put their own narratives into practice. So when I spent about 4 years in the Mayan Peninsula in Mexico, and that is close to the Caribbean. And, and by being connected with nature, I realized that we needed an information system that will help us to connect traditional ecological knowledge, or like local knowledge, as I know it, and scientific knowledge, because science was having this difficulty of communicating complexity. And what I saw in nature is that nature is beautiful. So how can we do something that is beautiful and at the same time it is all connected? So as I said, in Colombia and in Congo, for example, they might be solving the same kind of problem in agriculture or in the roofs of the, I have this example, for example, in Yucatan. I was living in the coast, in coastal dunes, and the people, they were using palm trees in a way. So I was wondering, maybe in Indonesia, they will be having a different solution with the same kind of tree leaves or palm tree leaves. So how can we cross-pollinate this knowledge? Because so far, most of the things have happened on the north, and this culture has been predominant. But if we think about biomimicry as being inspired by nature, then in the tropical core of the planet, we have mega biodiversity happening. So what if we can understand our nature and create a knowledge ecosystem on the top of our territory? So indigenous people, like Mayan people, they are losing their language because they are, in this time, the grandparents, they speak the language, but the grandchildren, they just can barely understand some words. So how can we create something that allows local people that we all think in this connected way, not exactly in the linear way that science taught us. Of course, we learned this, but the natural emergence of our thinking is more connected rather than linear. And so how can we make the best use of technologies to enhance local cultures, all sorts of local cultures? Because my belief is that if we can master our own nature in the way that we know it, then we'll understand the value that is behind. So for example, talking about these coconut palm trees, usually you see them and you just see them as providing you coconuts. But when I see the windmills, the wind turbines, they have to stop when there is more than 120 kilometers per hour of wind. But the coconut trees, the coconut palm trees, they don't stop, and actually they don't put resistance to the wind. So how to better understand this kind of technology? And we all have this kind of technology in our places, but since the people that are living there, the elders, for example, they are not scientists, then they are not rated as experts to tell you what is happening there. But when I was living in these communities, then I realized that they knew more than me about all this nature. And it was just a matter of reframing their perspective in terms of scientific biomimicry thinking and saying, this is about functional biology. So what is the function that this tree is fulfilling? What is the function of birds communicating in the morning and in the afternoon? And then you start relating science in this way. Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen and I'm gonna go through 7Vortex. So thinking about building this way of thinking, then I said, let me try to do something that let us connect knowledge in one or many ways. So for example, you might have seen this one because you mentioned University. And University is an organization that is systemic, that is working in Panama. And this is the way that they work. And this is the way that it is not me, the one that did it, but this is the way that they are connecting all the dots in between them. So how can we actually make sense of this when you have to explain everything in a linear way in a paper? It's very, very difficult because since everything is connected, it's like a contract. You need to understand 50 pages to be able to maybe imagine the connections that are there. So what if we allow like humanity to bring their knowledge in a connected way? and to put some media there, because the other thing is we are losing the knowledge in Facebook, in all these networks, that they don't care about the knowledge, they care about the instant, like Twitter, for example. But what if we can create something like this that allow us to see connection? So now they can see their projects in a connected way, the collaborators, and they keep it always evolves. So this is one way, from my understanding, that you can do something with the Nairobi University. So by sharing this kind of mapping tool with all the students, they will learn how to connect things. So in some ways, so for example, let me see if you were thinking about 3D printing. So this is already a knowledge base, like a knowledge repository being used by different universities and different perspectives. So some of them, they were mapping their thesis, and I'm trying to find some, for example, this one, additive manufacturing. So this is a research, and this is a way to connect scientific knowledge in a way that is visually attractive and that is easily unfolding. So you can see, like, in additive manufacture, and this is in Spanish, so it could be in English, or if you have like local languages, could also be built in your own languages. So bringing pictures and communication here, it allows us to understand what are the problems or the structure and how these things are connected one with each other. So as you can see here, there are some plus minus things. So one of my goals was to bring biology to the mind mapping atmosphere, because what I understand from system mapping is that they call it causal loop. I studied systems thinking in my university. So I've been familiar with this thinking like many years, and I love it. But when I learned biomimicry, I learned also about ecology. And ecology, it is the systems of nature. So being biomimic, then I moved into these systems of nature, and I was trying to understand how does nature actually create this flow, and what is the money in nature, for example, how the market works in nature. And the pattern that I found is that it is all about energy exchanges. So plus and minus like this, it is predation. So in biology, in ecology, they have 6 types of biological relationships, but oftentimes there you see 4 in one part, other 3 in another part in literature. So it is very difficult to just have a simple view on these relationships. So for example, predation is the easiest one to allocate ourselves, because this is the one in the center is taking the energy of the one on the side. This is the reference, because if you are killing someone and eating, then you are taking the energy and the other part is losing the energy. Is that clear?
Yes.
When you are fighting, so competition as the market is driving us, then we are both losing. So we are both losing energy because we are fighting and we are trying to kill each other and harming each other. And this is what is happening now with competition and markets. So how can we bring a different narrative to science, but not just to science, also to business? If we are about to talk of regeneration, how can we inform regeneration and sustainability from a biological perspective? In this case, from an ecological perspective. So I started business, and for my surprise, collaboration was plus. So I said, this is it, because in sustainability, I managed to do many like good, impactful things through alliances. And the alliances are about plus relationships. So win-win-win relationships. 3 times, 2 times, 4 times in between the different actors. And this is a process that I was following in all the time. But as in Mayan culture, they taught me it is a relationship between two. It is not a causal loop. It is not I affect you, but it is more about I affect you and you affect me. And we are in constant relationship in between both sides, but it is not just one side and then the other side. It's simultaneously both sides. So there are 9 types of relationships, and you can use this in 7Vortex. So for example, it is very easy. You come here, you create your profile, it is free. And then you will have a playground, which is just a playground. So you cannot change the title, but you can play around. And then you can also create. So once that you create, for example, we can say, well, this is Nairobi University. And here we can put 7Vortex. So what kind of relationship we want to have? Is it competitive? We want to kill each other? I don't think so. That's why, but this is the way that you can illustrate relationships. So my intention is that you will win and I will win as well. So how can we create symbiotic relationship, mutualistic relationships? And this is a game changer, because then we are talking about different possibilities, who is participating there, how can we actually find coincidences or maybe find differences that are important to us. So in governmental discussions, in scientific discussions, this is a great way to understand how the landscape it is working. By using these kind of tools, we can have different access to the points that are here. So with this star, we can just say, let's start by one or the other. So there are different starting points where we can unfold the story, or we can start by Nairobi and then explaining. So people that are not so systemic, they don't get lost, and we can start the story from one to the other. So everything is getting open here, unless you want to make some consulting work, and then you have to pay a license. So public-private. And when it's private, it's just 10 euros per month or 100 euros per year. And the idea is, for example, let me find one. This is so they are using this for dialogues in the cities in Colombia. Different kinds of approaches. Let me try to find one that I think could be interesting. This one. So,
and Hugo, for the public dialogue, so let's say we start a public dialogue in Nairobi, can other members of the 7Vortex community participate? That would be interesting.
Yeah, totally. So this is, for example, one that is open but not collaborative. But if you decide to make it collaborative, so this is, for example, about funding and about strategies. So it is very useful to make sustainability strategies in general, and to remark like possibilities and opportunities maybe of changing this relationship of 0-0 into something more dynamic, of better exchanges. So when you go to collaborate, then, for example, even this one of a university, right now everyone can collaborate if you make it open, unless you all have private memberships. But otherwise, the community is very respectful. So in general, we've been sharing just with other people like us, and so they are all willing to create like positive impact. So it's very, very collaborative. So for example, if I come here and I say, well, I want to collaborate, I can add one thing here, and I can say, well, I think this is about Hugo. And they will see that it is me. And I can see what they did, but I cannot change it. So that means that you can create the core of the class in a very, I'm gonna delete it, so to not to interfere in his mapping. And he can delete, or I know that it's Klaus because of the name here, and he can delete it whenever he wants. So he's the owner of the ecosystem. If I start a conversation from scratch or from 7 points, then from here, let's say the whole group in the school could keep adding information. It doesn't work completely real time. It has a delay of 7 to 10 seconds sometimes. It depends on the connection. but I think it's enough to work like from one day to another, or if you want to keep adding information in this perspective. So this is collaborative, so you can come and see it. So this is one of the ways that I use it. Another way is as a media, so as a magazine, as a digital magazine. So as a digital magazine, I've been making a collection, a repository of 7x7 bubbles. So I put a background, so I try to make it like more beautiful, and then I add information here, and I add videos. So I expect the young people, they will rather being in the phone trying to see this kind of content than just Facebook, for example. So I'm trying to build an alternative of content for this, and my best shot, it goes into 7 bubbles. So you can play with them and fix them in one place or another. And I'm building this repository of information. And if you are a user of 7Vortex, then you can have access. You just need to have your user, as I do it for biomimicry or even biographs. So people that have been doing interesting things that I think that are interesting, then I put it here. So for example, Kate Rauer with the Donut Economic, she's there, and this is kind of a playlist from her work. So that could work as an interactive book of a sort. And so this is the other way. So I don't know if until here you have any doubts, but 7Vortex is free. It is available for you. I'm happy to make another call, for example, to go through the fundamentals if you are interested for a specific group, and then we record it and then we leave it open. But this is something that I did for me because I needed this kind of curation tool to put all my knowledge, because as you said, for example, circular bioeconomy is not something that you have lots of information. So how can I gather the information and connect it? So let's put here bioeconomy to see if there is something. So some of the people are, well, there is something related to the words that could be found here. So I don't know, bioeconomia, for example. So you will see that this is a narrative from someone in a specific territory, and this might be interesting for you as a perspective, and will trigger something on your mind that could be helpful for something else. So it doesn't mean that the knowledge is exact, but it means that it could inspire you as a personal narrative that is here. So yeah, is there any doubts until here?
Okay. I don't know if you have interacted with the workings of blockchain technology.
Yeah, so the technology that we have behind, it could be linked with blockchain. The technology that we have behind 7Vortex is called Neo4j. And Neo4j is the next generation of databases, and it's kind of artificial intelligence native. So for example, I'm running just the first experiments, but using this, we can also do recommendation and entity recognition and connect it to other databases. So if you have a repository of information like Encyclopedia of Life, then it could bring scientific papers. On my own, just doing this like as far as I can, there are already 3,000 users. There are almost 500,000 visits, page views, and people from 150 countries and 4,500 cities. So this is just to trigger your mind into the participatory citizenship. So this mainly from like, well, everywhere in the world, but the focus is more on close to the tropics, because I think it's a matter of mentality. So we don't see it as messy, but we see it as a possibility of connecting. But we can connect to many different kinds of technology. So this technology is being used by IBM, and it is kind of similar, but this is the way that blockchain works. And this technology is used to make analytics on blockchain technologies. So this is the beauty of what I put together, that it is on the top of something that is more powerful than myself.
Yes, it is very exciting looking at it, because my PhD, I ventured a bit on blockchain. And so when you are talking about the possibilities of ownership of the various information sets, and how it is difficult for you to delete somebody else's work, it connected with what I have read. But I wanted to ask, you have access to all those entities you are talking about, in terms you can see what they are doing, just to appreciate. Now, if you give us the platform for learning purposes, can we also have similar access?
We can, but the problem now is that I'm not a developer, so I cannot do it on my own. So whether you have like the knowledge, for example, of Neo4j, or we have to hire developers to build this kind of access. So this is where the funding comes and becomes important. And this has been one of my limitations, because I put all what you have seen has been developed with my own funding. So I haven't received institutional support for doing these kind of things, because it is not in their mindsets in general. Now that it exists, it is easier to grasp what I was trying to achieve. But that wasn't the case in the beginning. So I needed to do it on my own, and then we can go as far as we want. It is as you kind of mentioned it with the Bill Gates idea, it is me, the one that is behind this. So we can take it as far as we want with the right funding, whether it goes to blockchain. So let me just share with you the second layer of this, which is virtual Gaia. And then you will see where the potential reaches. And then that will take another 5 minutes, and we can have another 5 minutes to close and to see if we can move forward in one way or another. So this is virtual Gaia, and I've been approached by a company that now I'm partnering with. So like you, that they asked me to develop something on the planetary level, planetary scale. So I developed this, and I put some kind of humidity and different layers on climate. So I think this is what you are looking at. And this is also for me important, because they usually say the Amazon are the lungs of the planet, but actually it's all the tropical core. And until we understand that the planet is a system and the tropical core is the filtering system, it is very difficult just to focus on one continent or the other, but it's actually the whole planet together. So in territories, this is connected to knowledge, for example. So some of the vortex in the title, in all the vortex in the title, you can put the location. Some of them, they have location. And when they put location, they can come here. So if you put all your vortex with a location in Nairobi, then you will start to see some content here. For the moment, we can just see one, but of course, the database is all connected. So it's just a matter of keep developing whatever we need. So this is from Georgia Tech that are working in this specific place. And then we go into a use case, which is Panama and University, which is the one that you were listening to, I think. So when we come here, we see that this is the territory. So we can connect geospatial information on the land use, on the rivers or watersheds, and also the knowledge. But I develop other different kind of tool sets. So for example, for impact evaluation, so communicating complexity, you have the 3 rings. So the 3 rings are from the center out. So this is baseline, then cycle 1 and cycle 2, or past, present, and future, for example. It really depends on the time scale that we want to put. But this could be as deep as we want. It could be informed by geospatial technology. It could be informed by databases. And this is what I'm doing with Costa Rica. So customizing these kind of things. And then here you have the knowledge ecosystem from the organization, from university. And this is for participatory, so with the indigenous village, town or nation that is living there, we wanted to listen their voice. So this is still experimental, but so I can put my name here and say, this is what matters to me. And it is more on security, it is more on health, for example. So this might bring a different perspective to democracy, because since it could be personal, then it could be also relating like different information in a way that is fractal. And by having these fractals for each one on your 6 topics, then we can connect it in a very interesting way and visualize it. And with this, I'm gonna close. But I'm gonna give you the example in the biomimicry community. So we call it the hive mind. And here we can see some of the people working on putting the content here. So it is a survey, but let's say this girl, Tamsin, belongs to different networks, and we want to see how these networks are connected with the others. So this is a way just to build a web visually. So I think in general terms, it's very powerful. Possibilities are somehow endless with a given technology in the present. And there are many possibilities of collaboration. So the entry point might be 7Vortex because it's free and you can use it right now. And you understood now the biological or the ecological patterns behind. And then the second step will be, as you also have this consulting firm and maybe related to the government, on how to relate scientific knowledge and geolocated knowledge, different technologies into one visual tool that allows us to understand the territory in one or many ways, with a bottom-up approach and top-to-down approach.
So first thing first, before Cecilia comes in, you have mentioned many times 7Vortex platform is free. How do we get to install it?
It's web-based. So you run it online.
Okay.
But you can get your user there. Like you put in join, and then you create your user with your email and your password. That's it.
Okay.
7vortex.com.
All right. So I think Cecilia can. Cecilia can ask her question so that we finish.
Sorry. Two things. One, Hugo, I was when you were doing the plus minus, I was laughing because on physics, the plus minus energy flow is entropy. And years ago, I started a different company when I was in Pittsburgh called Global Ectropy, because we don't even have a scientific construct in energy flow for plus. The assumption is that systems will always degrade. So there's like this physicist that came up with the term ectropy just to have a word. And of course, it then goes into the quantum physics and all this kind of stuff. So I named the company that, and everybody thinks like I'm a high level physicist. I'm not. I was looking for a word. So I love the concept. I would definitely say yes. In addition to government, so Dad and Engineer Ketch are very focused on policy and informing government, and I should be, given that my background is political science and public policy, but I also, working within, hit the proverbial wall so many times in communication that I like industry. I like talking to industry more. And I came up with a personal philosophy that tax dollars determine policy, and when you have the tax dollars to shift the needle, then things happen. So talking on that side of the equation, what is it that we should do in terms, because what I've noticed, like the virtual Gaia, I know our scientific membership would be able to readily grasp and build platforms. It's just a matter of how much time they have to allocate. the rest of the participants we have are not yet that familiar with talking geospatially in terms of using geospatial references to communicate their constructs, nor are they comfortable with, so that intuitively they grasp the concept of ecosystems, but they've never had to communicate or present information using ecosystems principles. So what I was trying to do, or still trying to do in the beginning, is just catch people where they are in terms of cognitive awareness. And so the reason for that I like the climate health economy nexus is you can link the climate related illness issues to occupational health and safety.
So I think,
and
for a 7Vortex, you can start with something very simple without getting into ecology. So the plus and this is kind of the second layer. And then just by understanding that things are connected, it's already a lot, especially for public policy making, because then they understand that creating one policy could bring other side effects that they are not usually in the radar because they are not experts in everything. And you can build the arguments. In terms of communication, the 3 rings are very useful because you don't require deeper knowledge. Like they've been working for many years. I've been using it from 2009. And they build a bridge in between financial people and indigenous people, which is surprising is that financial people gets it. And this is very unique and useful because since they are from the desk doing these kind of approaches, usually they don't have the contextual information that the indigenous people wants to bring. But once that you connect it, then they see the rings, and it is natural as well. This kind of a shape is like a fractal because it is in nature. So it helps the storytelling over time. So it is not just about a picture, but where do we come from and where are we going? And so I will say that the rings, before getting into the geospatial, it is the first entry point. And for Costa Rica, I'm building something specific that is, for example, on the community gardens. So with the rings, we are attacking food security and regenerative agriculture. So we can bring toxical chemistry, water management, capture CO2 capture. So how can we create, these are 21 different indicators. And this is the beauty, that we can bring many indicators and still create time layers. This is just the beginning, but what we're trying to create is a whole system. And this is also going to the first question. It is a whole system that will be happening on the phones that could be informed by local people. And then you do the computing to put all these things together. So let's say the end user doesn't have to get to know all these things, but a place where you can actually weave everything, it's what we are building. And that brings you results in terms of what we want to communicate.
And this is the virtual Gaia platform, right?
Yes, it is a virtual Gaia platform, but we are doing this kind of second approach bottom up because virtual Gaia became very geospatial. So how can we build the other side of the equation? And I'm building with Costa Rica Regenerativa right now.
So to start, in terms of like getting, if you have an email where you can, like a Gmail email or something where you can get a lot of information, we have an Office 365 group called CSTI Innovation Scoping. And that will give you a better idea of the kind of posts that we share. It's totally transdisciplinary. Oh, thank you. So I don't know, would you
I also
think
saw
that
your
it's
ESG framework. And for example, one of the cases that we want to build is how to create a report canvas for ESG that works from the supply chain. So if you build this kind of a bottom-up tool, and you create like automatic reports for ESG. So using ESG taxonomy, then you can almost create real-time reports from the ground, and they are cumulative. So that is another big opportunity. I have to go, but
and for that one, would you recommend for the ESG? Do we use 7Vortex or Virtual Gaia, which is the better one to start?
It has to be starting is always better with 7Vortex, because it's just putting things together. But if you want to get professional on that one, then we need to develop it, and this is where it has to match a business opportunity, and then the funding, yeah. And then we deploy it in Virtual Gaia kind of thing. We can also white label Virtual Gaia, but to say that if that is your business, for example, ESG reports in your country, then it could be worth to have a taxonomy and a system that helps you to bring these reports with a different approach of technology. So, but we are not there yet. We are not experts in ESG. So we need both, like your expertise, and we can bring the technological expertise on building this kind of interwoven knowledge, multidisciplinary knowledge from different perspectives. So we can integrate perspectives from the community, from the scientific side, from the geospatial side. So this is, and what is best is really depends on what do you want to achieve, where the funding is coming. But definitely we can, for example, if we do it for ESG, that might be helpful for using it with the students. So the idea here is how to create multifunctional designs that could be a leapfrog for students, for communities, for nature, because we are not here just because of the business, but we are here because we want to make the difference and create this positive impact that is understood, that is measurable, and yeah, we don't see this kind of opportunities in the market very often.
Thank you very much, Hugo. I know our time is up, so you have indicated that we can arrange for another call.
Yes.
If need be. Of course, your last statement is very applicable at the Institute for Climate Change, where we do transdisciplinary research. And it will be a game changer to see what students do with communities and all of them connected, and everybody can appreciate what is going on. So thank you for the offer. We shall try to use 7Vortex as we move to Virtual Gaia with time, but we are also grateful that you have agreed we can work together. I don't know whether...
Exactly. And this is a beautiful opportunity in general. So for example, these are 21 conversations mapped. So what I was doing is just to map the conversations as they emerge. So this is also a way to capture knowledge that is not yet there. And you can have access if you put fractal in the search engine, you will see the shape. But you were saying about building fractal shapes of African culture, and then inside you can have like as many conversations as you want. And with the future, we'll be running the analytics on what is the pattern in between all these conversations. And I think it's really amazing what we can build over time. And my way of working is trying to build these symbiotic relationships that will help us both. So if I build the same relationship with someone in Costa Rica, that might be helping you to develop another part of the technology so we can move faster. And I think we need to walk the talk here.
I want to end by indicating that most probably our next call, you could be talking to the members at the Institute for Climate Change. And if it is okay with them, we shall request you to present the same so that they see how your tool is so important to what they are doing.